Why did the killer always go to Walmart every Friday night before murdering someone? At exactly 11:42 p.m. every Friday night, the Walmart security cameras captured the same man entering through the north entrance. He never smiled, never spoke to anyone. He wore a faded green hoodie, jeans that were too clean, and gloves, even in the summer. His face was forgettable, his presence invisible. But what made it terrifying wasn't what he did inside Walmart. It was what always happened hours later. 3 miles from that store, someone would be dead by dawn. No connection to each other, no motive, no witnesses, and no trace of the killer. The only pattern police ever uncovered was the stop at Walmart, not to buy weapons, not to stalk victims, but to purchase one strange item, the same one every time, a small plastic plant. The item wasn't registered to a loyalty card. The credit card was cloned, and security footage only ever showed him from behind or under the shadows of his hoodie. Police started calling him the gardener, but nothing about him made sense. Why the plants? Why always on Friday? Why Walmart? Detective Lena Morell didn't believe in superstition. But when she reviewed the footage for the 6th time and saw that same man enter, she froze. Because this time something was different. He looked at the camera. For the first time, he looked directly at her, through the screen. And less than 12 hours later, her partner was found dead, with a fake plastic plant placed gently on his chest. Still warm, still fresh, and she knew with bone-deep certainty, the gardener knew there are killers who leave behind clues. And then there are those who leave behind rituals, patterns that make no sense, movements too precise to be random, yet too absurd to decode. He was watching. This is the story of a man who turned a Walmart into the gateway of his crimes. He didn't stalk his victims, he didn't taunt the press, he didn't leave bloodied messages or write manifestos. He left plants, plastic ones, always bought at the exact same store, at the exact same time, and within hours someone nearby would die. Always brutally, always quietly. Police were baffled. Criminologists tried to understand. Behavioral profilers from Quantico failed, until one detective started watching the tapes. And the moment he looked into the camera, into her eyes, the game changed. This is not a story of how he was caught, because he never was. This is a story of what he did, and what he might still be doing. Right now, in another town, in another store, buying another plant. Before we unravel this nightmare, I need you to do 3 things. Subscribe to the channel so you never miss stories like this. Like the video if these real-life horrors shake you to the core. And comment below, what city and country are you watching from? I want to know where these stories are reaching, because you never know who might be watching or who might be next. Take a deep breath, turn the lights low, and remember, not all monsters hide in the dark. Some walk right past you at Walmart. Chapter 1. The receipt detective Lena Morell had been in homicide for nearly 12 years. She thought she'd seen it all. Gang executions, revenge killings, cold-blooded family annihilations. But nothing about the gardener followed a script. No motive, no victim profile, no escalation. Just a ritual. Walmart at 11:42 p.m. Death by morning. The only clue? A crumpled plastic bag left near each body, and inside it, a receipt. Always the same item, always cash. She sat alone in the dim light of the precinct, the last receipt laid flat on the table. It was time-stamped 11:48 p.m., just 6 minutes after the man walked in. One item, De Buur 9831, decorative houseplant, 497. She'd memorized the SQ number. It echoed in her brain like a trigger. It wasn't the plant itself, it was what it meant to him. It was his ritual, and Lena knew. Rituals were never random. Rituals were sacred to killers like him. "Why plants?" she whispered. No one answered. Her partner, Reyes, had gone home hours ago. She was the only one who couldn't sleep while this man roamed free. Some thought he was a failed landscaper, others believed he was mocking law enforcement, planting his signature in plain sight. But Lena felt something different. This wasn't irony, it was intimate. The bodies were always cold by the time they were found, carefully arranged, like museum exhibits. No signs of struggle, no forced entry, no stolen property. Victims had no enemies. Some were elderly, others in their 20s. The only connection? They all lived within a 10-mile radius of that Walmart, and each had that damn plastic plant placed somewhere nearby. On a nightstand, a windowsill, even once, in the victim's hands. She stared at the footage again. The man walked like a shadow, smooth, rehearsed, almost graceful, his face always slightly obscured. But this time, something snapped into her gut when he turned his head. It wasn't just a glance, it was recognition, as if he'd seen her watching. As if the lens was no longer a barrier, but a mirror. Lena rewound the footage, paused, zoomed. His eyes were nearly black, not from color, but from absence, like something behind them had long since died, or had never been born at all. She'd seen killers before, but this was someone who didn't kill out of rage. He killed out of rhythm. The door creaked behind her. She jumped. Reyes stepped in, rubbing his eyes. "You're still here?" he asked, yawning. "It's 2 a.m. She didn't answer. She pointed at the screen. "That's him, watch." Reyes leaned closer, blinking. He looked at the camera, directly. "First time, right?" Lena nodded slowly. "And 3 hours later, someone's dead." Reyes crossed his arms. "You think he knows we're watching?" Lena turned away from the screen and whispered, "I think he's inviting us." And then she said something she hadn't allowed herself to say out loud before. "I think he's choosing the detectives now, not just the victims." There was a knock at the precinct's front door. Both turned. It was nearly 2:15 a.m. No one should be out there. Reyes reached for his holster. Lena moved to the side, peering through the glass. On the ground, just outside the door, sat a small plastic bag. Inside it, another plant, receipt included, no footsteps in the snow, no car in sight, no one around. But the timestamp on the receipt. 11:49 p.m., same Walmart, same night, but no one saw him leave the store. And the name on the receipt wasn't customer, it was Detective Lena Morell. Chapter 2. The signature. Lena didn't touch the bag. She stared at it like it might explode, or worse, like it might disappear. Reyes crouched beside it, his breath fogging the cold glass door. "Did you order something online and forget to tell me?" he joked weakly. She didn't laugh. Neither of them did anymore. Not with this case. Not after 6 dead bodies in 6 weeks. And now, this. She slipped on latex gloves and opened the door slowly. The cold punched her face. No wind, no footsteps in the snow. The street outside was silent, like the world had paused. She bent down and lifted the bag with trembling fingers. Inside was the plant. Same type as always, still sealed. And then the receipt. She unfolded it. Her name was typed clearly across the top. Lena Morell, paid in cash, 11:49 p.m. She looked up instinctively, scanning the rooftops, windows, shadows. Nothing. No movement, just the soft hum of streetlights and the faint buzz of the heater inside. She closed the door slowly and turned to Reyes. "He knows who I am." Reyes shook his head, but there was fear in his eyes now. "Maybe someone's screwing with you. Maybe it's internal." Lena didn't answer. Her gut knew better. This wasn't a prank. This was a performance. Back at her desk, Lena replayed the footage from Walmart again. She froze the frame where the man turned. "It's him," she whispered. "But how did he put my name on the receipt?" Reyes sat beside her, silent. Then he opened his laptop. "Let's check purchase logs. Maybe someone used your ID at self-checkout. There's got to be a digital trace." But there wasn't. The name had been entered manually. There was no account linked, no fingerprint, no camera angle showing the face. Just the plastic plant and her name. The next morning, Lena didn't go home. She drove to the Walmart. Same parking lot, same entrance. She walked through the doors, past the greeter and headed to aisle 14. Home decor, plants, shelf after shelf of plastic leaves in tiny pots. She counted them, all identical. But one spot was empty, the one marked a 9831. She ran her hand across the shelf, smooth, clean, wiped down recently. She found the manager in the back, a boy in his early 20s who looked like he hadn't slept. "We've had a lot of break-ins lately," he said. "Nothing stolen, just rearranged." Lena raised an eyebrow. "Rearranged?" He nodded. "One night we found a trail of plants leading from aisle 14 to the toy section. Another night, someone stacked them all on top of each other in the freezer." She didn't smile. Not anymore. "Do you keep that footage?" He did. But the footage had already been flagged by someone else. "FBI requested access 3 days ago," the kid said. "Didn't know y'all were working together." Lena's blood went cold. FBI hadn't been looped in. No interagency contact. No official file opened. Whoever requested that footage wasn't from the Bureau. Back at the station, she called Quantico. They confirmed it. No agent had accessed that store. No one had even heard of the gardener. Lena sat in her car, breathing shallow, her fingers shaking as she gripped the wheel. Someone was ahead of her. Someone was inside the system, or outside it entirely. Later that night, she returned home. Every light on, Glock under her pillow, TV playing white noise. But sleep didn't come. At 3:22 a.m., a soft knock echoed from her front door. One knock, then silence. She waited, waited. When she finally opened it, there was nothing. Except a plant. No bag this time, no receipt, just the plastic stem sticking out of the snow. She didn't scream. She didn't call Reyes. She simply picked it up with her bare hands and placed it on her nightstand, right beside her badge, right beside her gun. The ritual had shifted. And Lena Morell was no longer just investigating. She was part of it. Chapter 3. The Eyes That Watch. Lena didn't report the plant. She told no one about the knock. Some instinct, primal, old and cold, whispered that acknowledging it would only pull her deeper. But as she stared at the plastic leaves in the morning light, something unnerved her. It wasn't wet. It had been buried in snow, but it was dry, bone dry, like it had never been outside at all. She inspected the leaves. No prints. No soil, just the faint scent of citrus. She leaned in. There it was again, lemon, faint but sharp. She opened her laptop and began researching. The model, SKU 9831, was manufactured overseas in a facility in Malaysia. It was discontinued 6 years ago. Walmart still stocked it, but no new shipments had arrived in over 3 years. She frowned. So who was restocking it? She called the supplier. The woman on the other end sounded confused. We stopped production of that model in 2019. Surplus should have run out by now. Lena asked for a manifest, shipment logs to that specific store. Nothing. No delivery orders, no supplier codes, no record of SKU number 9831 ever being sent there. And yet, the shelf was always full, except after a murder. She went back to the store, this time during the day. She asked for access to the security room. The assistant manager, a quiet woman named Darcy, hesitated. "You're the detective asking about the plant guy, right?" Lena nodded. Darcy leaned in, voice low. "I've seen him." Lena's heart jumped. "When?" "Every Friday. Same time. He doesn't blink, he just moves, like he's already practiced it." Darcy pulled up footage from last week. There he was, hoodie, gloves, plant aisle. But this time Lena noticed something new. He paused by the surveillance monitor, lifted his head, and stared directly at the lens. Only this camera wasn't in a public part of the store. It was inside the security room. He shouldn't have known where it was. He shouldn't have known it existed, Darcy shivered. It's like he can see through them, like he's not being recorded. He's watching us. Lena backed away, her stomach twisted. She asked to take the footage with her. Darcy hesitated again, then said, "There's something else." She opened a drawer and handed Lena a piece of paper. It was a printed still image from that same security cam. Only this one showed Lena. From 2 weeks ago, shopping, alone. Blunt in her hand. Lena dropped the paper. "Where did you get this?" Darcy looked pale. "It was under the door last Saturday, no envelope. Just that." Lena said nothing. She grabbed the print and walked out. Fast. On the drive back to the station, she couldn't stop checking her mirrors. Every car felt like a shadow, every turn a trap, and the plant. It was still in her passenger seat. She didn't go inside the station. Instead, she drove past it, straight to an old contact. Mark Halverson, a former behavioral profiler who had vanished from public work after a breakdown in 2017. He now lived off the grid, north of the city, in a cabin filled with books, candles, and silence. "You found me," he said when she knocked. "I need your mind," she replied. "And you brought me a plant," he said, staring at the thing in her hand. "I hoped you wouldn't." They sat by the fireplace. Lena told him everything. The plants. The timing, the stares, the receipt with her name, the lack of evidence, the surveillance image of her. Mark listened, unmoving, then finally whispered, "He's not targeting victims. He's building a pattern, one that circles back to you." Lena shook her head. "But why me?" Mark didn't blink. "Because you saw him. That's what changed it. You weren't supposed to look back." Silence filled the cabin. Then a knock. 3 short taps. Lena froze. Mark didn't move. The knock came again. Slow, deliberate. She rose, gun drawn, opened the door. No one there. Just another plant. This time, it was already inside the cabin. Chapter 4. The pattern beneath the pattern. The plant sat on Mark Halverson's kitchen table like a declaration of war. The same plastic stem, the same artificial soil, but it wasn't from Lena. It was already there, before she arrived. Mark didn't speak for several minutes. He circled the table slowly, like it was a bomb, like it could whisper back if he waited long enough. "I burned one of these once," he said finally. "It didn't melt, it screamed." Lena blinked. "What do you mean it screamed?" Mark didn't answer directly. He sat, laced his fingers together and stared into the fireplace. Some objects aren't physical, they're echoes, carriers, markers. "You think he's leaving cursed plants?" "No," Mark said softly. "I think he's leaving anchors, for attention." For memory, for ritual. Lena shook her head. "This isn't a ghost story, Mark." "No," he said, "it's worse, because it's real, and it's built on psychology, not fantasy. You think this started with you? With the first body?" He leaned in. "It didn't. I studied a case in 2008. Same radius, same type of victims, no signs of struggle, and one object left behind, a plastic toy soldier, always placed the same way, feet facing the door." Lena's stomach twisted. "What happened to that case?" Mark's voice dropped to a whisper. "They sealed it, scrubbed it, buried it, just like the soldier." Lena stood. "You're saying this is part of a larger pattern?" "I'm saying," Mark replied, "he's done this before, with different objects, different cities, different avatars." Avatars? The item he uses, it changes, but the principle doesn't. He watches, selects, ritualizes, and then resets. Lena swallowed hard. "Why plants now?" Mark looked at her. "Maybe because he's growing something." She stepped outside the cabin for air. The trees whispered overhead. Cold wind, no lights for miles. She pulled out her phone, opened the crime database, and started scanning unsolved cases over the last 20 years, filtered by strange objects found at scene. First toy soldiers, then feathers, then postcards, all placed with bodies, all within a 50-mile spread, all on Fridays. The killings weren't random, they were seasonal. Like rituals tied to time, to nature, to cycles no one noticed, except him. And now he had turned his gaze toward Lena, not just as a target, but as a participant. She returned to the cabin. "There's a method, a rotation. The object changes every few years, always mass-produced, always cheap, but always symbolic. Soldiers, birds, messages, now plants." Mark nodded. "He's telling a story." "A story of what?" Mark's face darkened. "Control, ownership, legacy." And then he added, "and eventually, replacement." Lena's voice cracked. "You think he wants me to replace someone?" Mark said nothing. He stood and walked to a cabinet. Inside were dozens of old files, yellowed, dusty. He pulled one out and handed it to her. A photo slid loose. A woman, young, wearing a badge, detective, murdered in 2013, a plastic flower found in her hand. "She was the last one," Mark said, "the last one to get close." Lena studied the woman's face. She looked like her. Same eyes, same posture, same fire, same fate. Suddenly, a beeping sound echoed through the cabin. Lena's phone, a notification, motion detected, home camera. She opened the app. The live feed showed her apartment, dark, still. But something was off. In the middle of her bed, another plant. And this time, it was blooming. Chapter 5. The Bloom. Lena stared at the screen like it was a live feed from her own mind. Dark, cold, and violated. Her apartment, which she'd locked before leaving, now held the impossible, a plastic plant, blooming, not with flowers, but something else. Petals peeled open slowly, stiff and synthetic. But inside, she swore she saw something move. Just for a second, a twitch, like breath, like a heartbeat. Then stillness. Mark stood behind her, watching in silence. "He's escalating," he said finally. "You've become part of his story now." And stories don't stop until the character learns their role or dies. Lena's mouth was dry. "He's inside my apartment. He's inside my life." Mark turned to the fireplace. "He was probably inside it long before you knew." She closed the phone. "I need to go." She sped back into the city, breaking speed limits on back roads, her Glock on her lap, the steering wheel trembling beneath her hands. Every mile was heavier. Every streetlight flickered like it was winking at her. By the time she reached her apartment building, it was 4:03 a.m., silent, deserted. Her breath fogged in front of her as she reached the door. It was locked. No signs of forced entry, no scratches, no broken glass. She entered slowly, sweeping the living room with her weapon, empty, kitchen clear, bathroom and silent. Then she turned to the bedroom. There it was, the plant, still on the bed, but now, 2 of them. She approached slowly, gun aimed. The petals were slick, too perfect, too glossy. She reached out with her left hand and gently pulled one of the plants off the blanket. Beneath it, something scratched against the fabric. A small metal object. A button. She lifted it carefully. It had a number etched on it. 173. Her police ID. Her knees went weak. She sank into the chair near the window and stared at the plants. The meaning shifted in her head. They weren't tokens. They weren't messages. They were reflections, pieces of her. Every murder, every step of the killer, choreographed around her movements, her badge, her station, her thoughts. This wasn't a pursuit. This was a dance. She didn't sleep. At dawn, she went back to the precinct, requesting a private file pull on case number 173, her very first homicide case. The system took longer than usual. Finally, a file appeared on the screen. Victim, Marianne Holloway. Cause of death, undetermined. Scene, apartment. Plastic decorative item found near body. Lena froze. The plant, it was a plant. She had forgotten, buried it. She was green back then. The scene was chaotic, unprofessional. No pattern was noted. The plant was dismissed as clutter, but it was there, at the beginning. He had been there, watching her. Long before she had a name in the force, before she had the badge. He chose her. She staggered back from the desk. Reyes saw her. "You okay?" She didn't answer. He followed her into the hall. "You look pale as hell, Lena." "I need you to do something," she whispered. "I need you to find every case I worked where any item was left behind. Toys, feathers, cards, anything." Reyes frowned. "You think they're connected?" "I know they are." He didn't ask more. He just nodded. That night, as Lena returned home, her phone buzzed again. A new message. No number, no text, just a photo. It was her, at age 11, standing in front of a Walmart, smiling, holding a plastic plant. Chapter 6. The First Friday. The photo wouldn't stop vibrating in her hand. Not literally, but somewhere in her nerves, in her spine. The image of herself at 11 years old, grinning in front of a Walmart she didn't remember visiting, holding a plastic plant she couldn't recall touching. It felt like someone had photoshopped her past, but the timestamp said otherwise. June 5th, 2004, a Friday. She stared at the background of the image. A black sedan in the far corner of the frame. A man in a hoodie walking away, barely visible, blurred by motion. Her fingers trembled. She zoomed in. The face was distorted, but the posture, the stillness. It was him, the gardener, 2 decades ago, watching her, framing her. She went to her parents' house the next day. Her mother was alone. The air inside was stale, dusty with nostalgia. Family photos lined the walls, school plays, birthday cakes, sports trophies, but one frame caught her attention, a photo from the same day. Same Walmart, same plant, but in this one, her mother stood beside her and looked terrified. Lena lifted the frame. "Do you remember this day?" Her mother squinted. "Of course, you were 11. That was the day you went missing." Lena froze. "What?" Her mother nodded slowly. "Only for a few hours. You wandered off while I was in the checkout line. Police were called, but then you came back, holding that little plant like nothing had happened." Lena sat down hard. "Why didn't you ever tell me?" "You didn't remember," her mother said. "They told us not to force it, said children sometimes suppress short trauma." "What else?" Her mother hesitated. Then, "You were different afterward, quieter. You'd stare out the window every Friday night, and once I found a note under your bed. Just one line, 'I'll come back when it blooms.'" Lena's skin went cold. She left the house with the frame in her hand, drove until her knuckles ached from gripping the wheel. Her mind raced. That moment in 2004, the missing hours, they weren't lost. They were taken. She pulled over, opened her voice recorder, and whispered, "He marked me when I was a child. He's been waiting for the right season to harvest." Then she broke down and cried. Back at the precinct, Reyes had already pulled records, dozens of cases, each with an item left behind, all connected to her. Victims she had interviewed, witnesses she had dismissed, suspects she had interrogated. And in each case, something strange near the scene. A balloon, a burnt match, a music box, a feather, each object symbolic. Each one collected, like chapters in a twisted biography. Mark Halverson called her that night. "You were the first." She didn't answer. "I think he's been grooming you, Lena, not just to kill you, but to become him." The line went silent for a long time. Then Mark whispered, "You ever wonder why the bodies don't show signs of struggle?" Lena blinked. "They trust him," he continued. "They let him in." Her heart dropped. What if they knew him? That night she dug through her childhood journals. Most were blank, but in one, age 12, a single page was filled. Her handwriting, a list of names, 27, written in red ink, and beside each name a small drawing, a plant, a candle, a bird, a tooth, a comb, all items she'd later find at crime scenes. But this was before she ever joined the force. At the very bottom of the page was a final line, written shakier than the rest. "I don't know what he is, but he's teaching me." Lena dropped the book like it was burning. She backed away from the desk, and when she turned toward the window, she saw it. Across the street, a man in a hoodie holding a blooming plant. And this time, he waved. Chapter 7. The Seed in Her Mind. The wave wasn't casual, it was precise, deliberate, as if rehearsed 1,000 times. Lena stared out the window, frozen. The man didn't move. He stood beneath the flickering street lamp, a plastic plant blooming in his hand like an offering or a weapon. She blinked, and he was gone, like smoke, like memory. She didn't sleep that night. She just sat on the floor, back against the wall, the journal in her lap. 27 names, 27 items, all matched with real crime scenes. Some she had worked, others she barely remembered hearing about. The handwriting was hers. The drawings were hers. But the knowledge, she didn't know where it came from, as if something had been inserted into her childhood, not learned, but installed. The next morning, she met Mark in an abandoned greenhouse on the edge of town. "You need to stop looking at him like a person," he said. "He is a person," Lena replied, voice shaking. Mark stared through the broken glass ceiling. Maybe he was, once. But what he's doing now, it's not human, not in the way we understand. Then what is he? Mark finally looked at her. A virus, a psychological parasite, and you've been infected since you were 11. Lena paced between dead plants and shattered pots. "You're talking like this is science fiction." "No, it's conditioning." Mark pulled out an old file, yellowed and burned on one edge. MK Ultra wasn't a myth. Some of it was real. Some of it never stopped. They tried to grow soldiers, killers, puppets. Most failed. But maybe one didn't. Lena shook her head. "You think I was part of that?" "I think you were exposed, and he's the result." She stopped. "No, he's the gardener. I'm just the soil." That night she opened her own personnel file. Most of it was standard, academy scores, case records. But one detail stood out. Her psychological eval, dated year 1, had a hidden appendix. She had never seen it before. Subject demonstrates exceptional pattern recognition. Obsessive tendencies, ideal for long-term conditioning. Recommend surveillance. Signed by someone she didn't know, an agency she'd never heard of, Division 9. She called Reyes. "Have you ever heard of Division 9? Silence. Then, "Where did you see that name?" "In my file." A long pause. Then Reyes said quietly, "They don't exist." She laughed bitterly. "That's what they want us to believe, right?" "No," he replied. "They literally don't exist. I used to work Black Ops. Intelligence. Division 1 through 8 are real. Division 9 is a ghost. A myth within a myth. Like a name someone leaves behind just to watch who reacts." Lena's breath caught. "So someone wants me to see it?" "Yes," Reyes said. "And if they put it in your file, it's a message." "For what?" "To let you know. You were never the detective. You were always the case." The next day, Lena returned to the Walmart, not out of duty, but instinct. She walked through the aisles like a ghost. No badge, no partner, just silence. Aisle 14 still held the plants. SKU number 9831. But this time, one of them was glowing, not brightly, just enough to catch her eye. She reached for it. Underneath it, a folded note, typed. It read, "Time to come home, seedling." She dropped it like it was acid. That night, her dreams turned violent, flashbacks, flashes. She was a child again, a white room, a chair, a tape recorder, a man's voice asking, "Do you remember the garden, Lena?" She screamed awake, sweat dripping, and the plant beside her bed was now open. Inside, it was something wet, beating, still alive. She backed away, eyes wide, heart breaking. What if this wasn't about catching a killer? What if the killer was just one more tool in something much bigger, something grown inside her from the beginning? Lena whispered into the dark, "I'm not solving the mystery. I am the mystery." Chapter 8. The Roots Turn Inward. Lena sat in her car outside the precinct, engine off, hands shaking. The note, "Time to come home, seedling," burned in her coat pocket. The word seedling echoed in her head like a lullaby from a nightmare. She was supposed to report this, to write it up, bring Reyes in. but some voice inside her whispered, "Don't, not yet." And she listened, because that voice didn't sound foreign anymore. It sounded like hers. Back inside, her desk felt wrong. Her nameplate, her files, the cold coffee. Everything felt rearranged, familiar, but wrong, like a set on a stage. Reyes approached. "You okay?" "Fine," she lied. He sat beside her. "I ran the background on that image, the one from your childhood. The Walmart security logs from 2004 don't exist." She blinked. "What do you mean?" "I mean the cameras were offline that entire weekend. They were under maintenance. The image is fake. But the plant was real." Reyes said nothing. She went to the records room. Old, dusty, digital backups on portable drives. She typed in her own name. 10 case files appeared. Then 27, then 34, but then 112. Cases tagged with her name, even ones she hadn't worked, even cases from before she joined the force. She scrolled faster. Some had notes. Target stabilized. Subject proximity confirmed. Growth pattern holding. She clicked on one. Case No. 44, year 2002. Victim Gerald Morell. Her father died of a heart attack. Except the photo showed a crime scene, a living room, a man slumped over, and in his lap, a plastic plant. Her scream never left her throat. She just dropped to her knees and stared at the screen as if it could undo her life. Reyes found her an hour later. She hadn't moved. "What did you find?" he asked. She turned to him slowly, eyes hollow. "My father didn't die of natural causes." "What?" She showed him the file. His face went pale. "This wasn't here yesterday." "No," she whispered, "because it wasn't supposed to be found. Until now." She checked the metadata. The last file access wasn't by her. It was by someone under the alias Watcher09. Access time 3:22 a.m. The same hour the knock had come at her door. She stepped back from the screen. Reality tilted. Files appeared and disappeared based on behavior. Someone was watching what she searched and guiding it. She drove to Halverson again, this time not for answers, but to confront him. "How much did you know?" she demanded. Mark didn't flinch. "More than I wanted." "Did you choose me?" "No, but I was told to observe you." "Years ago, after you turned 12, they told me you had potential, that you absorbed patterns. I thought they meant intelligence. They meant obedience," Lena spat. Mark nodded slowly. "They never planned for you to be a detective. That was your own choice, but the urge to investigate, the instinct to follow threads, that wasn't born in you, it was planted." She stepped back, disgusted. "I'm not a weapon," she hissed. "You're a mirror, Lena," he said. "You reflect whoever holds you." That night she ripped open her apartment walls. She smashed mirrors, tore open floorboards, desperate to find something real, untouched. Behind the drywall of her bedroom she found a gap, a narrow space between insulation. Inside, a box. Inside the box, Polaroids. Photos of her sleeping, every year, every birthday, always from the same angle, same distance, same plant beside the bed. One final photo lay at the bottom, not taken yet. It showed her dead, eyes closed, blood on her shirt. A blooming plant on her chest and a date printed at the bottom. Friday, tomorrow. She didn't sleep, she didn't cry. She just loaded her gun, sat on the floor, and waited for the knock. Chapter 9. The Gardener's Maze. The morning came like a funeral. Grey sky, cold air, no birds, no noise. Lena hadn't moved all night. The unopened Polaroid still sat on her lap, showing her dead, peaceful, surrounded by silence. She stared at the date printed on the bottom corner. Friday, today, She didn't panic. She didn't scream. She had already passed the threshold of fear. Now came something worse: clarity. She went to the precinct, not to ask for help, but to access the one place few people knew existed: the Red Archive, a sealed, restricted digital vault created to store unsolvable crimes deemed psychologically corrosive. She typed in the encrypted code she wasn't supposed to know, accessed through a file she was never meant to open. The screen flickered, then bled into dozens of case folders, all marked with a red glyph she'd seen before, on the plant. Each folder contained footage, photos, audio logs, all fractured. Victims were unrelated, but the same object reappeared: a mirror, a string, a balloon, a coin, a plant, different symbols, same placement, always before death. Lena opened one log from 1996, a detective named Boyle. His last entry: "I thought I was tracking a man, but he's not a man. He's a system, a design. A gardener doesn't just pick flowers. He prunes, he arranges, and when they resist, he replants." She sat back, trembling. This wasn't a serial killer. It was a programmed ritual, passed through time, systems, agencies. And she was the next Bloom, unless she cut the root. She made her decision. Tonight, she would return to the place it all started, the Walmart from the photograph. Not to observe, but to set a trap. She called Reyes. "I need your help. No questions." He hesitated. "The Dwight, where?" "The Walmart. Tonight, 11:30 p.m. "What are we doing?" "We're ending this." Reyes paused. "And if it ends you instead?" She smiled, bitter. "Then plant something beautiful over me." They arrived early. Lena wore a wire. Reyes circled the parking lot. The store was nearly empty. Employees quiet, robotic. Aisle 14 was fully stocked, except for one gap. SKU 9831, missing. Lena walked slowly, breathing shallow, eyes sharp. The lights above flickered, one by one. Then everything went dark, for 3 seconds. Then the aisle lit again, and he stood at the other end. He didn't run, didn't speak, just watched. She raised her weapon. "Hands where I can see them." He stepped forward, a plastic plant in his right hand, a photo in his left. He dropped the photo. She didn't look. She couldn't. The plant landed upright, like it was growing from the floor. He smiled, soft, calm. And then whispered, not with his mouth, but into her mind, "You've always been here, Lena, even when you were away." She fired, 1 shot, 2, 3. He dropped, blood spreading across the linoleum. But then his body dissolved, into soil, into leaves, into roots, into nothing. Reyes ran in. "What the hell happened?" Lena couldn't speak. She pointed to the floor. Only the plant remained. And the photo. Reyes picked it up. His face went white. He handed it to her. It was another Polaroid. Her. Smiling, but this time she was holding his badge, and the caption below read, "Next." Lena dropped the photo, backed away. Reyes stood frozen, and then, over the store's speaker system, a voice echoed, "You can't kill what you water. You can't stop what you were meant to become." She looked at her hands, dirt under her nails. When had that happened? And why was something growing beneath her skin? Chapter 10. The Blooming Hour. Lena didn't remember leaving the Walmart. One moment she was staring at her blood-soaked hands. The next, she was on the roof of her apartment building, barefoot in the rain. Her service weapon was gone. Her phone buzzed somewhere in her coat. A message. No number, just 5 words. "It's time to take root." And beneath that, a gif of a plant blooming in reverse. She stumbled back into her apartment. The floorboards felt soft beneath her feet, like soil. The walls breathed. The plants weren't fake anymore. They had leaves now. Real leaves, damp, pulsing. Each corner of her home had been transformed, not with decor, but with life, or something that mimicked it. And at the center of the living room stood a single chair, facing her. She sat. She didn't know why. She just did. And the voice began, not out loud, not in sound, but inside, like memory, like prophecy. You were never chasing him, you were chasing yourself. Images poured into her mind, not memories, instructions, the years of investigation, the obsession. The victims, each was a step, each death an offering, each receipt a page in her subconscious. He hadn't left clues for her to follow, he had planted them, watered them, let her grow. In the mirror, she saw her reflection flicker. Her eyes were black now, not evil, but empty, like something had bloomed inside and hollowed her out. She blinked. The reflection didn't. Then it smiled and whispered, "Welcome home, gardener." She tore herself from the chair, screaming. Pulled at her arms, her neck. Something writhed beneath her skin. Veins pulsed with something too thick to be blood. She looked down. Her fingerprints were gone, replaced by lines, curved, spiral, like roots, like designs. She ran to the bathroom, turned on the light. The mirror was shattered, but the walls were covered in drawings, crude, childlike, all done in red. Plants, faces, Walmart logos, Polaroids, and always, always her own name, written in circles, endlessly repeating. The voice returned. "You are not the first. You will not be the last, but you are the first to understand. And now you must choose." Lena screamed, "I choose me. I choose to break it." Silence. Then break yourself. She looked at the knife on the counter. No ceremony, no hesitation. She pressed it to her palm and carved, deep, until she found something beneath the skin. Not muscle, not bone, but plastic. A root, artificial, alive. She dropped the blade, fell to her knees, and cried. The plants around her leaned in, as if listening, as if praying, and then a knock at the door, soft, polite, expected. She stood slowly, opened it. The man from the photo was there. Hoodie, smile, hands empty. He looked at her like a proud parent and said, "It's your turn now." Lena Morell was never seen again. Her apartment remained untouched. No signs of forced entry, no signs of struggle. Just silence. A quiet room. And in the center, a single plastic plant, fully bloomed. When Reyes arrived hours later, he found her badge placed beside it, clean and polished. No blood, no note, no trace, only the faint scent of lemon and the cold, unnatural hum of something that should not be alive. The footage from that night? Corrupted, just static, no faces, no movements, but the timestamp was precise. 11:42 p.m. The same time he always entered Walmart. The same time Lena disappeared. Her case was marked unsolved, then classified, then quietly erased. No memorial. No press, no closure, only a rumor that the killer had stopped after that night, that the cycle was over. But every Friday at exactly 11:42 p.m., the Walmart cameras still capture a figure walking through the north entrance. Same hoodie, same stillness, same aisle, only now she's the one holding the plant.